Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and welcome to another episode of Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to make all this change and uncertainty start working for you. Today, we have a guest, Eliz Greene, who has quite a story and a better set of solutions for you to really make stress and uncertainty all work out and really make you find calm in the middle of all this storm. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here.
Well, good. We're going to have a robust conversation because we got a lot to talk about. But for anybody in the audience who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your story, and I've known you for years, but I had never read the About page on your website, you have quite a story that makes the uncertainty the rest of us are dealing with look pale in comparison. So give us a little bit of background.
So my daughters often say that they gave me my career. So we have beautiful 20-year-old daughters who are rising juniors in college. And to me, that is the most amazing thing, because when I was 7 months pregnant with them, I survived a massive heart attack. And, having twins alone would have entered a lot of uncertainty into our lives. Having twins that were born 2 months early would have entered a lot of uncertainty into our lives. But then having my health be uncertain for real uncertain. So I survived something that is a rare complication of pregnancy. It's called a spontaneous dissection. It happens sometimes to women when they're pregnant. Most women that it happens to, unfortunately, don't survive.
Wow.
Fortunately for me, I was in the hospital on bed rest at the time. So I got great care right away. So heart attack, open heart surgery, C-section. It was a changing day for all of us.
Yeah, and I can imagine your poor husband must have been out of his mind.
Yeah, I had lots of great drugs. He didn't have me. He had about 5 hours of real terror. So while I go around the country telling that story, it's not one he likes to share.
Yeah,
it's a good story though, because it turns out well. However, what is odd about it, because it's such a rare thing to happen, no doctor could say, here's your prognosis. This is going to be fine, or this is not going to be fine. It was just a remarkable amount of uncertainty. And I needed to learn how to actually thrive under all of that uncertainty. Because I could have curled up in a little ball, hidden under my bed, and just been there in really reasonable, fear about what was going to happen to me. But I had these two little babies who needed me, and a wonderful husband who I wanted to spend time with and enjoy our family with. So I needed to find ways to move ahead and to have the kind of life that my husband deserved, and I deserved, and our daughters deserved. And that's really what I've spent the last 20 years building for myself and sharing with other people.
I think that when we talk about uncertainty, and certainly on this show, we focus on uncertainty as it relates to your business, but uncertainty is so much bigger than that. In fact, when I wrote my book, the last chapter I wrote was about the fact that uncertainty is just prevalent in your personal life. But I think when it comes to your health, that has to be the most difficult level of uncertainty, because without health, we can't. If I have when I was a kid, my mother used to always say, if you have your health, you have everything. And little did I know at the time how right she was. So how did you begin to find your way through? I do think that having two little babies was probably pretty good motivation, because you didn't have a choice. You had two little ones who needed you. But even so, like you said, being there in fear was understandable. And I think the moment that our health is threatened, it makes us fearful, because you don't want to go back there again. So what was your process to find your path through?
So that's a loaded question in a, like 400-page book, but
You're right.
but there are a couple of things. Two things that I really want to share. The first one is something that is a thing I say to myself pretty regularly, which is to choose to focus on what's possible, rather than dwelling in what's difficult.
I love that.
I had a birth plan. I did. And there were things that I was worried about going into birth of twins. It did involve open heart surgery. Like, that wasn't on the radar. So coming out of that and so I have a small part of my heart that doesn't beat it anymore. My health will always be uncertain. That is for the end of time, or my time. So I could choose to dwell on the fact that I can't go on roller coasters, and I'm not going to get to skydive, and I maybe have a shorter life expectancy because of what had happened to me. Or I could dwell on the things and really focus on the things that are possible. I get to be the mom that I want to be. I get to be the wife that I want to be. I have this whole new career as a speaker and an author that I didn't have before, that I really enjoyed and allow me to do the other two things. I'd rather focus on what's possible. And then the other thing is really a step into my brain that what if everything. So you and I are both members of the National Speakers Association.
Sure.
My first big going out, like getting on a plane by myself, going out thing, because I did regional work early in my career, was going to the National Speakers Association convention. I what if the heck out of that. Well, what if I get there and something happens? What if nobody knows my health condition? So there were all of these what ifs. And the way that I was able to move forward is to figure out what are those things I can control? What are those things I cannot control? Focus on what I could control, and find a way not to spend all of my time being anxious about the things that I couldn't.
That is so key. We have an exercise in the book. I just love what you're saying. I love this. One of my mantras now is going to be focus on what's possible. I think that I needed to hear that today as I make career shifts. But I love that. We have an exercise in the book, and one that I do with my clients is where you just do a brain dump of everything that you're fearful about, everything. And we all have things. I mean, we can what if ourselves to death, and divide them into the piles of what you can control and what you can't control, and force yourself to focus on what you can. Sounds so simple. It's so hard to do, but it's so incredibly powerful.
I don't tell this story very often, but I can tell you, as odd as it seems, on 9/11, the girls were 9 months old. Wow. And I had spent 9 months living with all of this uncertainty. On 9/11, I felt like everybody else in the country caught up with me.
Wow.
And it was actually okay to talk about, like, I just feel fearful of everything. I feel fearful of going to the grocery store, of driving down the road, of like random things just happening, because all of a sudden that denial, which is actually a really important thing for us to be able to go out and get out of bed and do those sort of things, right, was shattered for everybody. Mine had been shattered earlier. And that's when I started thinking, oh, I actually know some things about this.
Right.
Share.
Maybe I'm an expert. So uncertainty leads to stress, and you're an expert in stress. And I really, when I was reading about you, and it said that you're ridiculously fascinated by stress and the implications that it has, on our brain and on our bodies. Talk about that, because everything that I hear is really like, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but like stress is the new, sugar or fat. It's like the worst thing we can do to ourselves. And then here we are in the middle of this pandemic, and everybody thought 2021 was going to be so much easier. And it is lining up with more uncertainty than even a pandemic brought, right?
Yeah. So I say stress is the new smoking, but here's the caveat to that. It's the new smoking because it's a preventable cause.
Okay.
Right? So it's something you can do something about, unlike your family history or just the way your body works, that sort of thing. So it's a preventable cause of heart disease and lots of other conditions. The reason I'm excited about stress, though, is it's just a natural reaction that happens in your body. And stress isn't good or bad. It just is this natural reaction. So let's pretend we're driving down the road and like you're on the highway in the right lane, just minding your own business. And all of a sudden somebody comes zooming down that on-ramp and they're not paying attention. Maybe they're on their phone, whatever. And you think, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get in a car accident. And you look to your left and there's somebody there. That causes a stress reaction.
Right.
Cortisol pumps into your body. Your heart rate goes up. Your blood pressure goes up. Your blood even gets stickier. So if you're actually in the car accident, maybe you wouldn't bleed to death. All good things. So, but then when that car in the left lane actually moves over and lets you over and you get around, the cortisol level is supposed to drop back down to normal. It's supposed to go up when you need it, go down when you don't. The problem is uncertainty never goes away.
Right.
It's just up here all of the time. It's the stuff that keeps you awake at night. It's that constant triggering of that cortisol that keeps our cortisol level high, and that has all kinds of really terrible effects on our body and on our ability to think creatively and critically, and really doesn't make life much fun at all.
No, it's just, if you, it's interesting when this pandemic first hit, I was doing, unscientific surveys of my clients, and the unscientific survey was, when uncertainty hits, do you run to the sound of the gunfire, take action, or do you take a wait and see approach? And over 75% of the people that answered said, I want to run to the sound of the gunfire, but I'm taking a wait and see approach because I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And you could just feel the stress really welling up in people. So I do think people are sort of conditioned to go one way or the other. I feel like my sister experiences a lot more stress than I do. I tend to let things flow off of me. But if you are somebody who, for whatever reason, what do you start to do to manage stress and to move through stress and to get the good stress, but get rid of the stuff that's, giving us heart attacks and all the bad things that come with it?
So my guess is that you have a system of managing your cortisol that works for you.
Interesting.
We're going to get to that. But the other thing, good. Before we get there, I want to talk about why uncertainty creates a certain kind of stress that can be paralyzing. Because again, I said, it never goes away. It's just pumping in all of the time. But also, uncertainty by definition is unpredictable.
Right.
And our brains like predictability.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we make those pathways, is like, this happens, then that happens. Okay, that happened this time. I'm going to use that to predict what happens next time. But when you're living under a lot of uncertainty, your brain does not like that. And that's what causes the triggering of this cortisol all the time. First step is to recognize that it is happening. That is the first thing.
So just the awareness.
Just the awareness, like, oh, I am staring into the screen of my computer trying to complete a sentence. Could this be that I am under stress and my brain is busy dealing with all the cortisol? Could be. Yep. That happened to me when we took our daughters off to college their freshman year, and I was literally writing the chapter or the section of the book on uncertainty, and I couldn't get past like page 1 and sit there, can't do it until someone said, could it possibly be that you're dealing with the uncertainty of your life as a empty nester? Could be. Manage that stress, was able to write. So recognizing what's going on, whether that's you're not sleeping, the way that you used to. Your hunger has changed. You're feeling antsy or sad, or there's lots of different symptoms that we can exhibit when we're stressed. But we know it's different for us. And if we can back up and say, okay, there's something going on here. What is great is your body is naturally equipped to get cortisol out of the body if you let it. And sometimes you need to help it a little bit. So I'm willing to bet that you are an avid exerciser. Am I right?
I am.
All right.
Yes.
So exercise is an antidote for stress because it naturally brings your cortisol level down. Anytime you raise your heart rate and hold it up there for a little while and bring it back down, that is signaling to your body to let cortisol go out of your body, which is great. So I had my suspicions that this was the case. But there are all kinds of things that raise our heart rate that don't necessarily involve exercise. If you're an avid sports fan and you find yourself standing in your living room cheering on your team,
That'll do it.
Yeah, you're raising your heart rate. And when you sit back down on the couch and go, glad they made that, cortisol is leaving your body.
So then is the idea, because I really, there's so much validity to what you're saying, because when I was younger and in volatile situations, which, we all have crud in our lives, and
Yes,
and nobody escapes that. But I used to, I had migraines. I would have bad insomnia. I had all those types of things. And while I've always been an exerciser, somebody who could release, I developed in my mid 30s, around 36, 37, I developed processes and systems like routines. So I start my morning with meditation. I focus on my goals. I exercise in the morning. I exercise, again at night. Pretty regimented about how I eat. So even in a system, and I find when I get a lot of anxiety, the thing that calms me down is making a to-do list and organizing what I've got to do and the process. Like my sister laughs at me. She's like, "You're so regimented and rule oriented," but it's how I've find calm. So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, interestingly, maybe your sister and you need different things.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I really love to share with people is the border collie iguana.
Okay.
Sort of situation. And this really came out of a trip that we took for my husband's 50th birthday. He really enjoys scuba diving. I'm not allowed to do that, and not sure I would enjoy it anyway. We went with two other couples to Mexico because we live in Wisconsin, and diving in Lake Michigan, which rarely gets above 50 degrees, not quite as enjoyable as the Caribbean. So we went down and took a vacation. The whole group of them would dive in the morning. We'd have lunch together, and then the other couples would retire to the pool, which was in a mangrove and had little iguanas, not just but iguanas running around the pool. So they would have a great time our friends sitting there, having a beverage, reading a book, having a conversation, having another beverage. I am super pale. My husband can't sit still. We couldn't stay at the pool that long. We were in and out. We'd go sightseeing or take the little boat or whatever. But eventually we came back to visit our friends, the iguanas, at the pool. And one of the guys said to my husband, "When are you going to relax? You are go all the time." And my husband said, "I am relaxed. If I don't have something to do, I start chewing on things like a border collie." And, it's one of those times in a relationship where you're like, yeah, that's true. He's not chewing on things. He just can't let go of all of the things that, what's in his email inbox. Is the project he delegated going to be taken care of the way he wanted it to? So he needs to be fully occupied in order to disconnect from the stress and allow his body to recover. It doesn't work. You can run your feet off, and if that cortisol level is still pumping into the system, it's not going to work very well.
Yeah.
But if you can shut off that by disconnecting from what's causing you stress, then you can actively recover.
So talk a little bit about your book. So, we
Mhm.
head into this pandemic, and we
Mhm.
all think coming off 2008, we had seen uncertainty and shift in the marketplace. But here we are running through one of the best economies that we have ever seen in most of our lifetime. And all of a sudden, this
Yeah,
pandemic hits and our world is completely rocked. So talk about your process. You're starting to think about writing the book. Tell us about the book.
I was right in the middle of writing it. So,
Okay,
uh,
great.
and I will say it stalled because there were other fish to fry.
Yes.
But my publisher was patient, which I appreciated, and I believe in the process it became a stronger book because I did have to. I had a lot more time to to spend on writing it. Um, but the framework was already there, and what the framework is really the system I've used for the last 20 years to manage my stress, keep my heart healthy, and have what I call it vitality, which is the capacity for a purposeful and enjoyable life. And that's what I've been speaking about and writing about for 20 years. It's all in one place. And there's lots of exercises. The border collie iguana quiz is in there to see,
Yeah.
are you a border collie or an iguana or somewhere in between. It it pulled all of the things that I do standing in a room with people in a workshop or in a keynote speech into a book that you can take with you and do it all yourself, which I'm sure, as a fellow speaker, figuring out how to write a exercise that you do with people over an hour
Yeah.
and a half in a room into something that makes sense without seeing anything, it took a while.
Yeah. And so it is called Stress Proof Your Life,
Stress
correct?
your life,
All right.
absolutely.
And there is the link up there. It is hard to believe, but we are coming to the end of the show. I like to end with two questions. One
Yes.
that is fairly easy. I've put it all up here as we've gone through the show, but tell people how to find you, how to get a hold of you, how to learn more about the book. The other question is, what is your biggest piece of advice to our audience as they deal with the uncertainty of 2021? What is your biggest piece of advice for them?
So you can find me the elizgreene.com is a great place to find me. If you forget that, stressproofyourlife.com works too. And then my biggest piece of advice. If we're thinking about uncertainty and the stress, give yourself a break. What
Nice.
we've gone through in the last year, what we're heading into in the next year is hard. And there is no one right way to do it. And rather than thinking about all of the things that maybe didn't go the way that you anticipated that they did, or you wanted them to go, find every day something that you can look at and say, all right, that one was pretty good. I truly believe in celebrating all victories, no matter how big or small. On Friday of this week, I'm going to turn 56 years old. For someone,
Yeah, congratulations.
thank you. For someone who had a heart attack at 35, 56 is pretty dang fantastic. I choose to dwell on that rather than the creaky knees and the multiple colored hairs that sometimes show up when I'm not good on the maintenance.
That's right there. I'm just 2 years ahead of you. I cross 58 June 8th. So we have books and
Ah!
birthdays to celebrate when we get in person. Eliz, I can't thank you enough. I really hope you're going to come back on because I have a lot of other questions I'd love to talk to you about. I think that I'm on a mission to really help people see uncertainty as a positive, that so much opportunity can come out of it. And I think there's a lot more conversation that we can have. The biggest thing I'm going to take from you today is to choose to focus on the possibilities. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the awesome audience. We had huge participation today. I hope you join us every week right here, 1:30 Eastern. You'll see the show announcements on LinkedIn. We'll wrap this up, put it in a podcast, get it out to you. And remember, check us out at valuespeaker.com and learn everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your competitive advantage. We'll